Welcome to the Ethiopian Bible. You've probably seen the claims online. The Ethiopian Bible is the oldest Bible in the world. It has secret books banned by the church, and it's the real original Christianity. But is any of that true? Well, let's dig into the Ethiopian Bible. What is it really? Why does it include so many more books than other Christian traditions? And does it offer some lost or suppressed key to a knowledge of early Christianity? Well, let's start with some myth-busting history. See, the roots of the Ethiopian church, they stretch right back into the New Testament itself. In Acts chapter 8, we meet an Ethiopian eunuch, an official in the court of Queen Candace, reading Isaiah 53 on a chariot. Philip explains how Jesus fulfills this prophecy, and the eunuch is baptized on the spot before heading home. That's the first recorded African Christian convert. So don't ever buy the lie that Christianity is a white man's religion. Middle Eastern and African Christianity long predates the gospel ever arriving on the shores of Europe. Later Ethiopian traditions also say that one of the 12 apostles, either Matthew or Matthias, also preached in Ethiopia. But these claims contradict earlier sources like Hippolytus and Eusebius, so historians treat them cautiously. What we do know is that in the 4th century, Christianity became the state religion of the Aksumite Empire. It happened through a remarkable story. A Syrian Christian named Frumentius, along with his brother, were originally taken to Ethiopia as slaves. He eventually gained the trust of the king, taught the faith to the royal court, and converted King Ezana. Frumentius later traveled to Alexandria, where Athanasius, yes, that Athanasius, ordained him as the first bishop of Ethiopia. That connection to Alexandria is likely where the Ethiopian Bible began. See, Alexandria was a powerhouse of biblical scholarship. It hosted the Septuagint project, which translated Jewish writings, including one Enoch, from Hebrew into Greek. It also boasted a rich Christian library of writings, from the apostolic New Testament texts to epistles and theological works penned by early church fathers. When Christianity took root in Ethiopia then, it was this Alexandrian library, both the inspired scripture and broader spiritual literature, that was imported, translated, and then used for worship and education. So let's answer the controversial hype. Is the Ethiopian Bible the oldest Bible? Well, no. Greek codices like Sinaiticus and Vaticanus, both from the 4th century AD, are older, complete Bibles. The Grima Gospels, the oldest surviving Ge'ez manuscripts, are only 5th century, beautifully preserved, but not older than what we already have from the Greek traditions. And the first full Ethiopian Bible we do possess, that's from nearly a millennium later. So while the Ethiopian Bible may be ancient, it's definitely not the oldest. But here's where things get spicy. You see, the Ethiopian Bible, it includes 81 books. That's more than the 66-book Protestant canon or the 73-book Catholic canon. Some versions, like mine here, actually have 88 books, others 93. So does this mean that the Ethiopian Bible then is more complete, like online critics claim? Or that it preserves banned Christian texts? Again, the answer is no, but with some nuance. Let's unpack it. You see, the idea of a canon is that there are certain books that are divinely inspired scripture. They're authoritative because they come from God. And the early church fathers worked hard to discern which writings lived up to that standard. The Catholics include 7 extra Old Testament books, often called the Deuterocanonical books, or what Protestants call the Apocrypha. There's Tobit, Judith, Wisdom of Solomon, Sirach, Baruch, and 1st and 2nd Maccabees. Plus some additions to Esther and a few chapters added to the prophet Daniel. These were officially affirmed by the Catholic Church at the Council of Trent in 1546, though they had long been used liturgically. But there are 2 reasons why the Protestants rejected these extra books. First, because neither Jesus nor any of the Jewish leaders in his time affirmed them as biblical. And second, because some of their contents clash with what the rest of the Bible teaches. But what about the Ethiopian canon? See, unlike the Protestant or Catholic churches, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church never held a council or to officially define what their canon was. Instead, their collection just grew organically, especially during the later centuries of isolation after the Muslim conquest of North Africa, which cut them off from the broader churches in Christendom. You see, books that were used in worship or copied by scribes or valuable for instruction were often included without any formal theological vetting process. So the Ethiopian process of canonization is much more akin to the Septuagint, just becoming a larger collection of writings translated into a new language. That's why some Ethiopian Bibles have more than 81 books. There was no consistent rule for deciding what was and was not scripture, like the criteria often used by other early Christians of apostolicity, orthodoxy, and Catholicity. So while the Ethiopian canon includes 1 Enoch and the Prayer of Manasseh and 1st and 2nd Esdras and the Books of the Covenant and 1, 2, and 3 Maccabean, it does so without a clear historical or theological filter. Now, interestingly, the Book of Revelation is not in the liturgical 81 book canon, but you might find a bunch of other Christian writings in these Ethiopian collections, like the Didascalia or the Synodos or the Ethiopian epistles of Clement, distinct from Clement of Rome. Now, 1 to 3 Maccabean included in the Ethiopian Bible might sound a lot like the books of Maccabees, but they're entirely different books, not unlike Clement. They're unique to the Ethiopian canon, not found in the Jewish or Greek Bibles, and have nothing to do with the Maccabean revolt of Judas Maccabeus. Sorry to pop the conspiracy bubble too, though, but the Latin-speaking West and Greek-speaking East never banned or burned any of these extra books in the Ethiopian Bible. They simply never bought them as divinely inspired scripture. That doesn't mean that you can't read them. The early Christians certainly did, and it fueled and contributed to their religious imaginations, much like the Christian literature of J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis does for Christians today. For instance, books like 1 Enoch, it's full of fascinating and wild imagery of the Watchers and fallen angels, hybrid giants, and cosmic judgment. Tons of conspiracy theorists want 1 Enoch to be biblical. But just because Jude quotes 1 Enoch, that doesn't make it scripture. If you want to dive into why, check out my other video on the Book of Enoch Explained. It digs into the details. But here's the big takeaway. The Ethiopian Bible isn't a treasure because it reveals some secret Christianity scandalously buried by the early church, or because in some way it's earlier or overturns the Protestant and Catholic canons of Scripture. No, it's a treasure because it reveals the heart and the history of one of the oldest, most isolated Christian traditions. So feel free to dive into these extra books of the Ethiopian Bible, perhaps as a window into what some Jews and Christians believed in the centuries before and after Jesus. And while these extra books might not be divinely inspired, you can still enjoy how they preserve the liturgical soul of the Ethiopian church and how they showcase the rich beauty of the Ge'ez language and the Christian imagination in the glorious illustrated manuscripts that their scribes produced. Hey, let me know what you think about the Ethiopian Bible down below in the comments. If this video lit a spark for you, please do hit that like and subscribe button for more to help spread the channel. Here at Questioning Christianity, we may not believe all the books in the Ethiopian Bible, but we do have an ever-expanding canon of videos helping you connect the Christian story to life's deepest questions. And if you want to help us create more gospel content, consider giving to our ministry with the link below, or go over to questioningchristianity.com. For now, I hope the algorithm has nailed what you're looking for with the suggestion up on your screen. And until I see you in the next video, truth invites questioning. Thanks for watching.